Americans love scenery. We want to see it all, from one coast to the next, Mount Rushmore down to the Everglades. So hop into a Chevy Malibu and take the scenic route. It's the car you knew America could build. There's a place where people count on friendships they can trace back generations, where they can count on the same stool at the coffee shop waiting for them every morning. This place is called Glen Ellen, and you can find it in every bottle of Glen Ellen wine. This is craft brewed Herman Joseph's, the smoothest, easiest drinking specialty beer in the entire solar system. And I believe you'll find drinkable in the dictionary right after don't order a beer you can't drink. Zoingo! Boingo! The freestyle pogo with more boing, more bounce. Bounce further, bounce higher with Zoingo Boingo. To see what makes Arrowhead Mountain Spring water different from those other waters, you have to go back to the source. And with Arrowhead, that means going back a little farther and longer than most. Between security challenged and security strengthened, there's one important word: how. And it is the how that makes all the difference to our nation and our world. Lockheed Martin. We never forget who we're working for. What makes Kraft Singles so good? 2 out of every 3 kids don't get the recommended amount of calcium. But with Kraft Singles, they get a good source of calcium and the taste they love. Kraft Singles. Magic every single time. Throw boring overboard with a new real meal from Long John Silver's. A meal worthy of a plate, just $4.99. Only at Long John Silver's. We may not all be geniuses, but we can all do something smart. Introducing the Hyundai 199 Sonata Lease. It's a smart deal on a really smart car.
Going through the park, we hit the Harry Potter village. I don't know, weird. I know we got Harry Potter. Listen, I haven't read one book. I haven't seen the movie, all right? But I'm looking around Harry Potter world. Weird people at Harry Potter world. Guy walking around with a cape, a hat, a magic stick. He come up to my family. Hello, everybody! Hello! And he didn't even work there.
Good morning. It's Wednesday, Apollo Wednesday, November the 26th, and this is The True Conservative. Welcome to all the butchers, bakers, and candlestick makers out there. I'm Ron, your host, and the only true conservative in the United States today. So today, after the Serenity Prayer and the patriotic song of the day, we will have Varney and Company, motivation, meditation, and Apollo. All that and more when I get back. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I should not change, the courage to change the things I should, and the wisdom to know the difference. Amen. Thank you. Now a little bit of Maria and then Stu.
And then you look at some of the AI names, and, there's a lot more green on the screen. The concern, of course, has been that all these companies were spending too much money. We're getting over that. It takes money to make money, and I think we're over it in the same way that 9 months ago, everyone was worried that DeepSeek out of China was going to upset our ability to lead in AI. We got over that. So it's just, growing pains, Maria.
Yeah, all right. Final thoughts. Ashley Davis.
I'm going to let Adam talk about the smart stuff right now, and I'm going to concentrate on Thanksgiving and tell everybody, my family, happy Thanksgiving, and also that we're very thankful for this country. We live in the most powerful place on earth, and it's amazing.
Absolutely. Gratitude for the hottest country in the world, which is the way President Trump describes America, with what, $20 trillion in new investment coming into the country on his watch is what he's expecting. Look, I want to thank you both, Ashley Davis and Adam Johnson. I'm grateful for the both of you. And, of course, I'm so grateful for our audience. Our audience is dedicated and there with us every morning. Thank you, everybody. Have a wonderful and safe Thanksgiving. And thank you to our great panel. Varney and Company picks it up now. Stu, take it away.
Great Thanksgiving to you, Maria. We'll see you again soon. Good morning.
Morning,
everyone. The day before Thanksgiving, big travel day, a day for politicians to get their last talking points in. For investors, take your positions. The market is open Friday, but it's likely to be a very quiet 4 days. All right, so why not start with affordability, the affordability of your Thanksgiving dinner. President Trump pardoned 2 White House turkeys, then launched into a speech about the lower cost of this year's turkey feast. Affordability is the big theme of both parties. To the markets. Let's start with the big bust-up in the AI chip business. The news that Meta would buy advanced chips from Google really shook things up. It means competition for NVIDIA, and it means some prefer Google's chips. NVIDIA down, Google up. It's real close to being a $4 trillion company. Elsewhere, the Dow Industrial Average in the early going, this is before the market opens, up about 100. The NASDAQ is up 115. As for interest rates, well, look at the 10-year Treasury, right at 4.02%. The 2-year Treasury yields under 3.5, 3.49. Bitcoin, $87,000 a coin. I'm sorry, 86.9, very close. Oil below $60 a barrel, you're at 57.86. Gas still not quite with a $2 handle. The average price for regular is $3.04 a gallon. On the show today, we'll take you to the airports. Yeah, big travel day. There are some delays and cancellations, but there are fewer disruptions. There will be weather delays with the snow in the upper Midwest. We'll keep you up to speed on that. If you're driving, try to gas up in Oklahoma. Regular there is $2.49 a gallon, cheapest in the country. Avoid California. It's $2 higher than Oklahoma, $4.57. A U.S. official says Ukraine is open to signing a peace deal with the president says he will meet Putin and Zelensky after the deal is signed. And this is the lead story in the New York Times. Shorter days, signs of fatigue. Trump faces the realities of aging in office. Having ignored Joe Biden's cognitive decline, the Times invents aging problems for President Trump. The Times' golden rule, Trump is always wrong. Look for problems, never ever say anything positive. Wednesday, November 26th, 2025.
And that was Varney and Company, a little bit of Maria Bartiromo. Non-profit news now. Back in a minute. Thank you. Now, Steve Inman. You gotta love Steve Inman.
Mama, don't let your children grow up to be soy boys. This way you can avoid paying a high 39% APR bill for your soy boy son in the hospital. Soy boy writing checks his ass can't cash and now paying it big time and tries to take this down, gets a flippin' that'll do a little bit of ground and pound to the dome, and I think this is all over. No, now it's over.
And that was Steve Inman. Back in a minute. Thank you. Now, Alice Weidel.
Wir brauchen günstige und sichere Energie. Das ist die Grundlage für wirtschaftlichen Aufschwung und Wohlstand. Deshalb müssen wir das gescheiterte Experiment Energiewende sofort beenden. Wir müssen Wir müssen die Zerstörung der Kernkraftwerke, die Sprengung von Kernkraftwerken sofort beenden und den Wiedereinstieg in die Kernkraft forcieren. Und wir müssen Erdgas und Erdöl dort kaufen, wo es am günstigsten ist, und das ist in Russland. Und das ist in unserem nationalen Interesse. Das ist in unserem nationalen Interesse. Und die Amerikaner wollen das auch. Und darum gibt es diese Friedensverhandlungen, weil die Amerikaner ihre nationalen Interessen vertreten, die sie für Deutschland vergessen haben. Liebe CDU.
And that was Alice Weidel. Back in a minute. Thank you. Now a little motivation.
What is enslaving you? Is it the television set? Feeding your mind images of what life should be? Is it the internet drawing you in and controlling your time? Is it drugs or alcohol numbing your brain and diminishing your desires? Or is it weakness? A lack of discipline that prevents you from accomplishing what you want to accomplish.
Wherever focus goes, energy flows. So why don't we tap into that power now for your business and life?
So many people have lost their day to distraction. What are some things you need to immediately stop doing in your life? Is it social media? Is it watching 7 seasons of a show every week? What do you need to stop doing to take back control of life? Also, what do you need to start doing? And what do you need to start doing every day, every week, every month, every year to be on your A game? Discipline buys you freedom to do what you want.
Sacrifice leads and gains follow. Don't look for any gains where there's been no sacrifice. Don't wake up and look for no game. Don't look for your game to improve. Don't look for the record to improve. Without sacrifice, there are no gains. You can't make millions of dollars if you don't make millions sacrifice.
You're going to need to cut some fat if you want life to change. If you want to show me you want to win that bad, pack your calendar, because everything is based off of activity. Very few people want to show their calendar, because if they did, you would realize who really wants to win bad and who doesn't. It's mathematically impossible for you not to win at the highest level if your calendar is packed from day till night, every single day, the entire year, day after day after day after day after day, without you winning.
Champions are focused on the goal. They don't have time to be doing stuff that's not going to help you toward the goal. And so what you're focusing on throughout the course of the day, it has to change. What you're looking at, what you're reading, what you're watching, the conversations you have. You must now be focused on your dream. You must be focused on your goals. When you are great, you don't focus on a week. When you are great, you don't focus on a month. When you are great, you don't focus on a year. You concentrate on the 24 hours that's in front of you, and you live it. And the problem with some of y'all is you want somebody else to support your dream. It's yours. It's your dream. If you wanted to have it, get your butt up and make it happen. If you wanted to have it, rise and grind. If you wanted to have it, you're going to have to do what I do, and that's get up at 3 o'clock in the morning. Because this is my time. This is my moment. Tomorrow. Ain't no such thing as tomorrow. We only got today. Now, I ain't put my dream on nobody else, and I don't care what nobody think about my doggone dream. It's your dream. Nobody's going to see it like you do it. Nobody's going to be as dedicated to it as you are. It's your dream, and they don't have to understand, and they don't have to like it. It doesn't make a difference. It's your dream, and you, my friend, have been given the task to make it happen, and you can't let anything stop you from doing what you were called to do.
And that was a little bit of motivation. Back in a minute. Thank you. And now, a little bit of meditation.
Good morning. I want you to focus right now in imagining waking up each morning just feeling calm, centered, and filled with a quiet sense of joy, ready to embrace whatever the day brings. Find a comfortable position, either sitting upright or lying down in bed. Allow your eyes to close softly and take a deep breath in through your nose and slowly exhale through your mouth. With each breath, feel yourself arriving fully into this moment. Let the body soften, the shoulders and jaw relax. Begin to notice the natural rhythm of your breath. Each inhale bringing in fresh energy in this morning. Each exhale releasing anything heavy from your dreams or that you no longer need. With every breath, allow yourself to feel more grounded, more open, more at ease. Now gently bring to mind one thing you feel grateful for this morning. It could be as simple as the warmth of your bed, the light of a new day, or the steady beating of your heart. Hold this feeling in your mind and let it expand through your body. Take another slow breath in, and as you exhale, think of a second thing you're grateful for. Notice how gratitude feels. Warm, peaceful, uplifting. Now bring in a third gratitude. Let it fill you like sunlight spreading through every single cell of your body. You are surrounded by abundance. You are supported, and you are exactly where you need to be. Silently repeat to yourself, I rise with gratitude. I radiate peace. I welcome this new day with pure joy. Feel these words sinking deeply into your heart. With every breath you took, imagine your gratitude radiating outward, touching your life, your day, and everyone you meet. And smile. Don't forget to smile. for yourself, for others, for this gift that you have today to live another day. When you're ready, feel the weight of your body. Take one last deep breath in and release. Slowly open your eyes and carry this sense of gratitude with you throughout your day. Go forward today with calm, being centered and radiant. Thank you and have a beautiful day.
And that was a little bit of meditation. Back in a minute. Thank you. And now, Jerry Wayne.
You know, there comes a point in your life where you don't just change, you rise. Not gentle, not graceful, not photogenic. I'm talking about climbing hand over hand up out of a pit you dug with your own two hands, while the old version of you tries to drag you back down by the ankle. And that's when it happens. The moment you start moving toward the light, somebody down in the shadows starts hollering your name like you're doing something wrong. Because they missed the broken version of you. The easy version. The predictable version. The version that didn't challenge them to face their own darkness. Some folks don't want you healed. Not because they hate you, but because your journey forces them to look at their own stagnation. And it is easier to call you changed than it is to admit they've been standing still for 10 damn years. But when I started clawing my way towards something better, he didn't see hope. He saw abandonment. He saw betrayal. He saw me stepping out of a shadow he was still married to. I didn't rise above him. I didn't outrun him. I just outgrew the darkness we used to sit in together. That's the part nobody wants to say out loud. When you start walking towards a life that doesn't hurt as much, the people who won't move will swear you acting brand new. They'll say you're judging them. They'll paint you as the villain in a story where all you ever did was try to survive. You can lose your entire future trying to stay loyal to a chapter you were meant to finish. You can drown trying to save someone who's grabbing you harder than the water is. You can die a little at a time, staying small, just to keep someone else comfortable. But just listen to me. You are not meant to sacrifice your journey for someone who refuses to take the first step on theirs. Your peace is worth defending. Your healing is worth defending. Your purpose is worth defending. Every damn time. You can love somebody with everything you've got and still know that walking next to them will burn you to the ground. You can pray for them. You can hope for them. You can carry their memory like a stone in your pocket and still refuse to follow them into the dark. I miss my friend more than I say out loud. And I hope wherever he is, the shadows finally loosen their grip and let a little light in. I didn't walk away because I stopped loving him. I walked away because survival demanded movement. Because the road to becoming who you're meant to be doesn't always accommodate everyone you love. And sometimes the doorway to your better life opens at the exact place someone else's path ends.
And that was Jerry Wayne. Back in a minute. Thank you. So the John Kobylt is on vacation. What a surprise. He can't wait until Thursday and take Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday like everyone else. No, he's got to take an extra day. He's got to have himself a 5-day weekend because, of course, he's special. So the guy that's replacing him is talking about the Secretary of Transportation who is whining and complaining about the behavior of passengers and passengers becoming unruly, in some cases violent, and about them wearing their pajamas. As I have said, and this replacement for John Kobylt seems to agree with the Secretary of Transportation. Secretary of Transportation should be doing is opening up hubs for foreign airlines so that the American airlines can have competition, because that's the only thing that's going to make things better. Right now, the unionized American airlines, the unionized pilots, the unionized flight attendants, everybody in the airline is unionized except, I guess, the CEO. They're bratty, and they treat people like crap. That's what they do. And then they're shocked and offended when people get hostile with them. Well, maybe if they acted in a customer service fashion, where they acted like they were glad to have the passengers on the plane, and or screen the passengers before they get on the plane, by the way. If you have people with really bad attitudes, make sure they don't get on the plane in the first place. But other than that, they got to start treating people better. I've heard about airlines like Lufthansa and Air France, and the difference in the way you're treated on those airlines versus American Airlines is unbelievable. It's night and day difference. They know what customer service is on foreign airlines. They treat you like a valued customer instead of like a piece of trash. You start treating people like a piece of trash, and sooner or later, some of the people are going to start acting that way. They're going to lose their self-discipline, and they're going to go off. Okay, so let's not be stupid about this. The American Airlines, they're getting what they deserve. And I hope that President Trump and the Secretary of Transportation fix the problem by giving competition to the airlines. Back in a minute. Thank you. And I made aware that there's two West Virginia, apparently they're West Virginia, what do you call it? They're not reservists, National Guard Army, I guess. And anyways, that they were murdered. They were killed. They were murdered by a liberal assailant who was, last I heard, in critical condition. I hope that, as far as I'm concerned, the liberal assailant is evil, satanistic anyways, and I hope that he is severely punished for his villainy. So why? Why did the liberals go after these National Guardsmen? Because they represent law enforcement. And again, the left hates law enforcement because it represents certainty of knowledge and because it represents self-determination or free will. Okay, you don't have law enforcement. Our whole criminal justice system is based on certainty of knowledge and free will. Without free will, we wouldn't have one. We wouldn't have a criminal justice system. It wouldn't make any sense. So they want to get rid of that. They want to brainwash people into believing that all of our behaviors are determined. And so that's where this attack came from. It's stupid. It's childish. It's wrong. It's evil. And again, I hope the assailant is punished, severely punished for his villainy. What can we do about it? One of the things I'd like to see Congress doing about it is going, when the next time that Congress is open, I don't know when they're coming back into session again, one of the first issues of business should be prayer. It drives the Satanist left crazy in the House. They scream and yell, and they try to shout people down. Have the prayer anyhow. Have a collective prayer in the House of Representatives. We call for a minute of prayer, or somebody that will say a prayer, whatever it is. And if you have friends that are lefties, that's what I would recommend that you do, is say, hey, will you join me in a moment of prayer for these two slain law enforcement officers, for lack of a better term. That's another way that you can, something you can do and I can do. Pray for these people. Do it openly. Invite liberals to join us. If it makes them mad, so much the better. Back in a minute. Thank you. And now, Geert Wilders.
Nederland is van ons. Frankrijk is van ons. Italië en Oostenrijk is van ons. Tsjechië is van ons. Estland is van ons. En Portugal is van ons. Hoor je dat goed? Sheikh Guy Verhofstadt. Europa is niet van jullie, maar van ons.
And that was Geert Wilders saying that Europe is for them, not for the Muslims and sheikhs. Back in a minute. Thank you. And now a little bit of John Kobylt from YouTube.
Page 56 says, avoidance areas should be shared with incident command, but measures should be taken to keep the information confidential. In other words, the public in those neighborhoods should not know that when a fire happens, if they have a choice between protecting the neighborhoods and protecting the milk veg plant, the milk veg plant wins, and those of you in the neighborhoods of Castellamare and Pacific Highlands, you lose. And you lost. It's actually on page 56. So what happened was the plan. Now, I noticed, walking around the Palisades a lot and talking to people, that over time, people started saying, it's like they let it burn. It's like that was the policy, to let it burn. And I noticed it started cropping up in articles. And the LA Times would scold and wag its finger. It's like, well, these are unfounded, untrue claims and suspicions. It's like, well, no, they're not, actually. It's in black and white. I have the report in front of me. I don't know how else to interpret this. When the neighborhoods are at significant risk during a wildfire, but suppression techniques with heavy equipment are the main concern. Let it burn. That was the state's plan.
And so, again, he could so easily increase his influence here throughout the state by talking to Democrats, telling the Democrats, if it was me, I'd say, hey, Democrats, here you are busting your butt, going out, you're protesting, you're donating, you're voting, so that you can reduce climate change, so that we can avoid a global catastrophe in 2035. You're concerned about it. Your children are concerned about it. Your parents are concerned about it. And here is the governor of the state of California that is going ahead and putting the milk veg plant ahead of global warming / climate change. He is contradicting all of your efforts. Why? Why bother with Governor Newsom? I understand that you want to vote Democrat, and I respect that. But there's got to be better Democrats in this state than Governor Newsom and Mayor Bass. That's what he should be saying. Back in a minute. Thank you. And now, Apollo.
Chapter 26. I think we need to do a little more all-weather testing. Walter Caprian, Cappy, looked unhappily through the windows of the firing room at the skies over the Cape. It was Friday, November 14th, 1969, and the launch of Apollo 12 was scheduled for 11:22 that morning. Caprian, a Langley man and an early member of the Space Task Group, was directing his first launch since taking over the Launch Operations Directorate from Rocco Petrone. Petrone, who had moved into Sam Phillips's job as Apollo Program Manager when Phillips returned to the Air Force, had left Caprian a daunting record to live up to. Petrone had launched every Apollo flight thus far at precisely the planned second, 2 Saturn 1Bs and 6 Saturn 5s, 8 flawless launch schedules in a row. The weather outside was iffy. Yesterday it had been plainly unacceptable, with thunderstorms passing through the Cape all day. The skies had cleared during the night, and it had looked as if the launch was safe, but now the morning had brought more clouds and intermittent rain. The pressing question was whether the current conditions fell within the weather rules for a launch. Caprian kept planes and weather balloons at varying altitudes above the Cape throughout the morning. He wasn't worried about the rain. Short of torrential downpours, the Saturn V wasn't affected by rain. But either high winds or lightning would scrub the launch. All morning, however, the word coming back to the firing room was the same. Winds were light at all altitudes. The Sweeney meters they used for measuring lightning potential showed no problem. The countdown continued. By 11, Caprian was still edgy. They were not in violation of the weather rules, but the cloud cover was at less than 1,000 feet and the rain was getting worse. It just didn't feel like a good day to launch a Saturn V. But none of Caprian's options was without risk. The Saturn was fully fueled and, after a quick fix of a minor fuel cell problem, working perfectly. The spacecraft was working perfectly. The astronauts, an all-Navy crew consisting of Pete Conrad, Alan Bean, and Dick Gordon, were already on board. To offload the propellants, reload them, and recycle the countdown was a major job that would introduce a variety of hazards. The spacecraft and launch vehicle were never going to be more ready than they were now. The next time, there might be a small, not quite in violation problem with a vehicle that would worry Caprian a lot more than the weather was worrying him today. To increase the pressure, the President of the United States, Richard M. Nixon, was sitting in the small VIP room, a triangular glass enclosure that jutted out over the firing room like the prow of a ship. Caprian knew he couldn't let Nixon's presence affect his decision, but having the President watching from up there, waiting to see the advertised launch, didn't make Caprian's job any easier. Caprian silently asked himself, as he would in the last minutes before every launch he directed, "What am I doing up here? Isn't there a better way to make a living?" At the rows of consoles below him, the countdown was as smooth as he could wish. Caprian decided, as long as the rain didn't get worse and the wind didn't rise and there was no lightning, the rules said launch, and that's what he was going to do. 1. In the Mocher at Houston, it was also a first-time day for Jerry Griffin. Griffin was part of the third generation of flight directors, brought in along with Milt Windler and Pete Frank in 1967. He was the first of his group to be named lead flight director and the first to be flight on a launch phase. Still baby-faced at age 34, an Aggie from Texas A&M with a high-pitched Texas twang, Griffin knew from the loops at the Cape that they were having weather problems in Florida and had doubted that they were going to launch. As the countdown continued toward T-0, he was pleasantly surprised. Like most flight directors, he had chosen not to have a television image of the launch on his console screens, but he assumed that the weather must be okay, otherwise the Cape wouldn't go ahead. At 11:22, right on schedule, the Saturn V fired up and rose from pad 39A. The commander of Apollo 12, Pete Conrad, was an exuberant, playful man who felt no compulsion to pretend that he wasn't excited. His voice came over the loops full of joy. "This baby's really going," he reported. "That's a lovely liftoff." Only 36 seconds into the mission, Conrad's gleeful commentary was interrupted by loud, continuous static that drowned out all communication. 26 seconds later, the static finally faded and Conrad came on the air again, his voice a little breathless. "Okay, we just lost the platform, gang. I don't know what happened here. We had everything in the world drop out." In the Mocher, all Jerry Griffin knew was that the air-to-ground loop was filled with static and that neither he nor any of his controllers were getting any data from the spacecraft on their consoles. This did not necessarily constitute an emergency. Because of the vagaries of the ground stations and the many kinds of electromagnetic interference with which the communications system had to contend, it was not unusual to lose data or even voice contact with the spacecraft for a few seconds. Still, Griffin didn't like losing communication during the launch phase, always a worrisome time anyway. Then came Conrad's voice reporting that the guidance platform was no longer functioning, which meant that the spacecraft now had no way of knowing where it was or what its attitude might be. Capcom Jerry Carr acknowledged with a calm "Roger," which in the absence of any data from the spacecraft was the only thing he could do. Data were still coming in from the launch vehicle, the systems in the Saturn were completely independent from those in the CSM, and the Saturn V was still pumping away, gaining altitude, maintaining the correct trajectory. But Carr didn't need to tell that to the astronauts who were still being pushed back in their seats by the 3G force of the S1C stage. Then came Conrad's next message. "I got 3 fuel cell lights, an AC bus light, a fuel cell disconnect, AC bus overload 1 and 2, main bus A and B out." Conrad's voice was calm but strained. He was reporting that, for all practical purposes, the spacecraft was inoperative. All electrical power was down except for the emergency batteries that ordinarily were used only for entry. Conrad had barely finished his sentence before Griffin was on the loop to his ECOM John Aaron. When things start going to worms, Aaron would point out later, the ECOM was the most likely person to know what was going on. Only something in the electrical system that ECOM monitored could be causing the multitude of difficulties that 12 was encountering. "How's it looking, ECOM?" Griffin asked. He fully expected Aaron to come back with a recommendation to abort. John Aaron had intended to be a math and science teacher and raise Herefords. But upon graduation from Oklahoma's Southwestern State College in 1964 with a degree in engineering, he had applied to NASA on a whim, and a few weeks later someone in Houston had telegraphed an offer of a huge salary, or so it had seemed to an Oklahoma farm boy. Aaron hadn't known for sure what they were doing down in Houston, but he decided he'd go down and do whatever it was for a couple of years and then return to his Herefords. Since then, he had come to delight in the work, and he had already acquired a reputation within FOD as one of the sharpest of the ECOMs. What he was about to do would make him a NASA legend. Like other controllers, Aaron had set up his panel of buttons to light for various malfunctions and, ordinarily, he would have gone first to the lights to try to identify what had happened. But this time it was hopeless. The whole place just lit up, Aaron recalled. I mean, all the lights came on. So instead of being aids to tell you what went wrong, the lights were absolutely no help at all. He turned quickly to his screens. The screens hadn't gone blank, nor had the numbers turned to zeros. Rather, it was as if the screen had suddenly gone from English to an unknown language. The 100-odd parameters on the 2 screens still showed values, but values that didn't make any sense. Aaron, like everyone else in the Mocher, had no idea what had happened. Unlike everyone else in the Mocher, however, Aaron saw a pattern in the numbers, and the pattern was somehow familiar. Now all he had to do was remember why. About a year earlier, Aaron had been sitting in the Mocher at midnight as part of a small team led by Glyn Lunny. They were watching a test at KSC, just one more way of familiarizing themselves with their systems. The test was proceeding normally when the parameters on Aaron's screen suddenly changed to a strange pattern. Not zeros, but an incomprehensible set of values. Then the numbers returned to normal. The morning after the test, Aaron retrieved a hard copy of the anomalous screens from the computer and took it back to his office. There was no particular reason for doing so, just Aaron's uncommon curiosity. Aaron couldn't make any sense of the numbers he had seen. As persistent as he was curious, Aaron got Lunny to call the Cape and find out what had happened. The Cape wasn't pleased to have Houston call and demand to know how they had screwed up, but they disclosed nonetheless that a test conductor had accidentally dropped the power system on the CSM to unusually low voltages. Aaron went looking for one of the instrumentation specialists at MSC, trying to find out why the screen had reacted in such a peculiar way under low voltage. They spent hours on it. Finally, the instrumentation guy zeroed in on the signal condition equipment, SCE, a box of electronics that performed an obscure role in translating the information from the sensors into the signals that went to the displays in the spacecraft and on the ground. It had a primary and an auxiliary position. In the primary position, where it was ordinarily set, it had a sensor that would turn the SCE off under low voltage. In the auxiliary position, the SCE would attempt to run even under low voltage conditions. You know, the instrumentation guy told Aaron, that signal conditioning equipment had tripped off because you were in primary. Now, if you'd gone to auxiliary, you would have wiped this circuit out and you would have got your readings back. Aaron thought that was interesting. It is part of flight controller etiquette to credit the backroom reflexively. Whenever flight controllers are reminiscing about a memorable call, the formula is always, Old Bill had been working with the boys in the back room, and they came up with... Steve Bales, who had done that with Jack Garman on Apollo 11, put it best when he compared the men in the back and front rooms to two mountain climbers roped together. Virtually without exception, the assumption that the back room was involved in a major call is correct. In the case of John Aaron on Apollo 12, it is not. There was no time. When Griffin asked Aaron, how's it looking, Aaron was just starting to call his back room. Is that the SCE? He asked, already sure of the answer. Boy, I don't know, John, a worried voice came back. It sure looks... Griffin, getting no answer to his first call to ECOM, he could not hear Aaron's exchange with the back room over his loop, tried again, needing an answer quickly. ECOM, what do you see? Aaron cut off his back room and punched up the flight loop. Flight ECOM, try SCE to aux. Griffin was surprised. In the first place, he was ready to call an abort and was already preparing himself for that irrevocable step. In the second place, he had no idea what SCE referred to. Never in any of the simulations or the mission techniques had that switch been mentioned. Griffin wasn't sure he'd heard Aaron right, and in fact he hadn't. Say again, SCE to off? Aux, corrected Aaron. The Mokers was truly the world's most economical language. Griffin played it back to Aaron, needing to be sure. SCE to aux. As he confirmed, Aaron loosened up using two whole words, auxiliary flight. Griffin still had no idea what Aaron was talking about, but once again trust made the system work. SCE to aux, Capcom, Griffin said. Capcom sat immediately in front and to the left of the flight director. Carr turned his head and looked back up at Griffin with a, what the hell is that, expression on his face, but his was not to question why. In this situation, Capcom had two responsibilities, to communicate clearly and to radiate confidence. Carr did both, his voice sounding as if he were relaying a standard procedure that would make everything okay. Apollo 12, Houston, try SCE to auxiliary, over. What panel, ECOM? Griffin asked. He was asking Aaron on which instrument panel in the spacecraft this hitherto unknown switch was located. If Carr, an astronaut, didn't seem to know what SCE referred to, it was entirely possible that Conrad and his crew didn't either. Pete Conrad, riding on top of a Saturn V in a spacecraft whose alarm panel was lit up like a pinball machine, seemed as mystified by the instruction as Carr and Griffin had been. NCE to auxiliary, he said dutifully. SCE to auxiliary, Capcom repeated. This time the crew heard right. Al Bean, the lunar module pilot, knew where the SCE switch was and clicked it to the position labeled aux. Griffin was still worried that the crew didn't know how to put SCE to aux and asked again, what panel, ECOM? But by this time, everything had changed. We got it back, flight, Aaron said laconically, meaning that the data, interpretable data, had come back up on his screen. Looks good. Now that he had data, Aaron could also deduce that the fuel cells that powered the CSM had, for reasons unknown, been disconnected. A minute and 50 seconds had passed since launch. 30 seconds since Conrad had first reported his status. Bill Tyndall was sitting in the viewing room. The VIPs around him, headquarters people, politicians, and celebrities, were laughing and talking, relaxing now that the tension of liftoff was over. Nothing they had seen in the room beyond the glass, nothing they had heard in the voices of the controllers speaking their incomprehensible language, had hinted to them that anything was wrong. One of the senior officials from FOD, who, like Bill Tyndall, knew something was badly wrong, tried to quiet the others so he could hear. My first thought was, I can't believe this is happening to me, Jerry Griffin recalled. It wasn't panic at all, more sort of a feeling of, my gosh, what's going on here? Every other flight director who had launched a Saturn V had had an easy time of it, comparatively speaking. Charlesworth had lost 2 engines on Apollo 6, but that had been on the second stage of an unmanned vehicle. Griffin glanced at one of his console screens. The 5 F-1s on the first stage, close to the end of their 2.5-minute life, were still burning unperturbed. He decided that even if they still had to abort, there was no sense in hurrying. At least this way they were gaining altitude, and with altitude Griffin also gained time and options if he had to bring the crew down. He went around the horn, polling his controllers to see whether they were go for staging. As soon as he had completed that, ECOM was on the loop again. Try to put the fuel cells back on the line, and if not, tie battery, Charlie, to main A and B, said Aaron. He was referring to main bus A and main bus B. A bus may be thought of as a set of wall plugs. The fuel cells generate electricity and feed it into the buses. The various pieces of equipment in the spacecraft draw electricity out of the buses. Carr passed the word to the crew. It was only seconds later when ECOM reported again to flight that Fuel Cell 1 and Fuel Cell 2 were online. Fuel Cell 3 would come up again within seconds. The entry batteries could be taken offline. The spacecraft was alive again. Half a minute later, after the S-1C had staged and the S-2 had taken over, Pete Conrad came back on the air. Okay, now we've straightened out our problems here, he reported cheerily. I don't know what happened. I'm not sure we didn't get hit by lightning. The crew had seen a bright white light at the time their problems began. A few seconds later, the irrepressible Conrad was back. I think we need to do a little more all-weather testing, he said confidentially. Amen, replied Capcom Carr. Amen. The onboard tapes reveal that Conrad, Gordon, and Bean laughed the rest of the way into orbit, making jokes about the way every alarm in the spacecraft had gone off at once. Down below, Griffin had heard Conrad's speculation about the lightning. Dang it, I bet that's what happened, Griffin thought to himself. His Texas A&M background was about to come back to haunt him. Texas Aggie jokes were to Texas what Polish jokes were to the rest of the country. Griffin had nothing at all to do with the launch decision, but even so, and even before Apollo 12 had left Earth orbit, people in flight operations were going around saying, "Did you hear the one about the Aggie who launched a Saturn V in a thunderstorm?" The one thing we missed was the Ben Franklin situation, Patron mused. Somehow that had never entered into our discussion. What they had done, they realized later, was to launch a 363-foot lightning rod with the equivalent of a copper wire in the form of a trail of ionized gases running all the way down to the ground. Even though there was no lightning in the vicinity before launch, Apollo 12 could create its own, and that is exactly what it did, discharging the cloud into which it had entered. A few of the soaked observers at the viewing area could see it even from 4 miles away, a long flash of lightning down the exhaust plume to the steel of the umbilical tower. Actually, Don Arabian's anomalies team later determined that Yankee Clipper, the Apollo 12's command module, was hit twice by lightning, once 36.5 seconds after launch at an altitude of 6,000 feet, when it discharged the cloud it was flying through, and again 16 seconds later at an altitude of about 14,000 feet when it triggered a cloud-to-cloud bolt. Each time the lightning acted on Yankee Clipper in 2 ways, as Arabian later described to a visitor, accompanied by a vivid reenactment of the crew's reaction and the sound of the alarms. First, the lightning itself, a jolt of 60 to 100,000 amperes, flowed through the metal exterior of the Apollo stack from top to bottom. The only damage it did, however, was to destroy some external instrumentation for measuring temperatures and RCS reserves, none of which was critical. Because of the way the Apollo stack was electrically grounded, the direct charge did not penetrate the spacecraft itself. In addition, however, the lightning induced electromagnetic fields within the stack. Induced voltages and currents, powerful but not nearly as devastating as a direct jolt, raced through the electrical circuitry and, among other things, knocked the fuel cells offline and caused the guidance platform to begin tumbling. As it turned out, the shocks were not powerful enough to destroy the circuits. The reason 12 was able to get to orbit was that the guidance system for the Saturn V, buried within the instrumentation unit at the top of the S-4B stage, was unaffected by the lightning. If its platform had tumbled, the Saturn would have gone out of control within a few seconds. Part of the reason the spacecraft was so affected by the lightning while the Saturn was not involved the spacecraft's greater exposure. It was positioned like the tip of a lightning rod, and part of it was luck, as Arabian emphatically pointed out. Neither the launch vehicle nor the spacecraft had been designed with lightning in mind.
That was Apollo, Chapter 26, Section 1. And that's by Charles Murray and Catherine Bly Cox. Next week, 26, Section 2. Back in a minute. Charlie Kirk, rest in peace.